Hey guys, Frost here. Welcome back to a new episode of Rags to Riches. Today's video is going to be different. Today we're going to talk about one of the most expensive consumables in game, Black Lotus. Now, I've been away from the game for about a month and a half. I've been raid logging. I recently came back, and I came back to a price of Black Lotus to about 200 gold. Blizzard reintroduced layering for a limited amount of time. I think it's still in game. The price went back down to 170, but then it went up back to 200. Now, during the course of vanilla, Black Lotus was always a valuable ingredient. And from now on, it's going to be more valuable than ever because dungeons such as raids such as AQ40 and Extramas will be released, and people will require to use flasks more than they did in the past. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have like alts with herbalism or herbalism as their main profession, and probably you've been successful or not successful enough at picking the Lotus. Today's is going to be a comprehensive guide on how to get better at picking the Black Lotus. So in the past week, I picked about 2 to 3 Black Lotus every day on my server, Firelina, while on stream, live on stream, while I was doing something else. I was grinding dungeons with my mage, and once I was resetting with my alt that it's in the same account, I was just looking around for the Lotus. Now, the reason why I picked those Lotuses is because, well, first of all, the knowledge and the basic understanding on how the Black Lotus works. We're gonna talk about today about the spawn points, about the timer, about tips and tricks, and so on. So let's get into the first thing you need to know about the Black Lotus. Where do they spawn? So there are 4 maps in the game that can spawn Black Lotus. There's Burning Steppes, there's Eastern Plaguelands, there's Silitus, and there's Winter Spring. So each of those 4 maps have 10 spawn points for the Black Lotus. Now, knowing those spawn points is crucial. If you don't know the spawn points, there's an add-on. If you check my previous video called 7 must-have add-ons for classic WoW, one of the first add-ons there, it's an add-on called Gathermate 2. Not only that add-on remembers all the nodes in the game, talking about treasure chest, fishing, herbs, and minerals, you can also import a database with all the nodes showing on your map, so it makes life easier for you who are looking for those herbs. I suggest you go get that add-on, Gathermate 2. It will increase your odds to get probably a Black Lotus by, let's say, 50%. Moving on, once you have the knowledge on where the Black Lotus spawn points are, we get into how do we get the first Black Lotus, because in order to be consistent at picking the Black Lotus, you must have a timer. So the question is, how do we get the first timer? Easy. First of all, you go to a new zone. Let's say you go to Burning Steppes. What you want to do in Burning Steppes, you want to walk over the Black Lotus spawn points in a circle, in a rotation, however you choose. You must visit as fast as you can all the spawn points. So here things like carrot on a stick, minor speed on boots or helm or gloves might help. Get as much speed as you can. Walk over the spawn points. And even if you don't have the timer, you have a decent chance that the Black Lotus will spawn under your feet. Most of the Black Lotus I pick, they spawn under my feet because the competition is crucial here. There are people camping the spawns, there are people using level 17 hunters, sometimes 9 of them, scouting every spawn point and sitting in the middle. So basically, once the Black Lotus spawns, in about an average of 1 minute, it will disappear. But by going into a circle on the map, you have about 30% chance to get the Lotus yourself, because walking from a spawn point to another takes anywhere between 20 seconds to 1 minute. So you have, from the spawn timer, you have about 1 minute that you can visit at least 3 spawn points. Now that's one way of doing it. The second way of doing it is by knowing your competition, who's farming the Black Lotus. So usually the same people over and over farm on the same map the Black Lotus. So once you know them, you can see them running over the spawn points. And then you can make a judgment call if they're actually looking for the Black Lotus. But usually a map, let's say, has like 20 persons looking for spending time in that map, such as Burning Steppes. But then when the Lotus is about to enter into its timer, another 10 people appear out of nowhere and they start looking and walking over the spawn points. There's only one conclusion: they have the timer and you must try to get it as well, the Lotus. Now, the Lotus, let's say you find a Lotus at 6 o'clock game time. You pick it at 6 o'clock, you find it, voila, you have your first Lotus. When does the next Lotus spawn? Well, the next Lotus spawns anywhere between 6:45, 45 minutes after the last pick, all the way to 7:15, which means the spawn timer is 30 minutes, from 45 to 15. So basically, Lotus spawns after 45 to 75 minutes. That's the window of Lotus spawn. In that 30-minute windows, you must do your best to visit most of the spots. Now keep in mind, this is a basic Black Lotus guide. Of course, you can use tips and tricks. You can party up to look for the Lotus. You can use a shaman for Farsight. You can use a hunter for Eagle Eye Scout, and so on. Some people use multi-boxing to pick them. That's really something I hate, but it happens. Even if they use that, it's still possible to pick it. I had Lotus successfully picked from the Lotus Mafia. On our server, there's a guild that there's 7 people, for example, in EPL, sitting on every spawn point. So one person is covering 2 spawn points, one is covering 1, and so on. So I even managed to pick the Lotus from a whole guild camping all the spawn points. It is possible, however, it's harder. Never give up, always believe in yourself, and be consistent and determined to pick it. Now, I want to talk about a couple of tricks that can help you pick it up easier. Let's say you find the Lotus, right? Usually when you find the Lotus, there's a huge chance that you will start a PvP scenario. So having things like engineering would help. Herb with engineering is the perfect combination to pick the Black Lotus, and mostly because you have tools such as grenades, you have tools such as a Goblin Rocket Helmet, which can be used to silence an opponent, or also it can be used to charge a mob such as the Dragonkins in Burning Steppes and put him out of his misery for about 40 seconds while you can loot the Lotus in peace. The second thing, it's 5 Herbalist skill on gloves. That will help you a bit in picking the Black Lotus. Sometimes you find the Black Lotus and you can miss 3 times before you pick it. That's the most annoying things, unless you're a Tauren, which Taurens can make their skill up to where the Lotus become yellow, so 100% pick. But if you're not a Tauren, the best way you can think if you can wear leather, it's getting a pair of Herbalist gloves with 5 Herbalist enchant. Another thing, it's a trinket from Stratholm called Piccolo of the Flaming Fire. So what this Piccolo does, if you find a Lotus and you already see someone on it, from your own faction, if you are willing to do that, you can go next to him, pop your Piccolo of the Flaming Fire. The Piccolo of the Flaming Fire would trigger the dance emote, because that's what the trinket does. Starts people around you, make them dance, and they will cancel their Lotus picking animation, and then you can pick it as well. That's a scummy thing to do, but the competition is high, it's a PvP server, and it's your choice if you want to do it. Now, let's talk about a couple of ways to grind the Black Lotus. On some servers, it's so hard to pick an actual Black Lotus because the competition is so high, but on most of them, it's gonna be easy. If I can manage to pick 2 to 3 a day on Fairlina NA, which is quite a populated servers, and I pick them early in the morning, and I pick them during peak time. Most of them I pick them by luck, because on my stream, I usually have 1,000 viewers plus. And once I pick the first Lotus, people get the timer and come and will snipe me, and that's normal, it can happen. My best record on stream, I picked 6 Lotus, and my best record off stream, I picked 9 Lotus. That's through the course of a day, right? And not necessarily all the time doing the same thing. Which gets us to our 4th point, a couple of ways of grinding the Lotus. So whenever you're looking for the Lotus, don't only focus on looking for the Lotus, because there will be days where you won't be able to pick any. So always try to pick extra flowers. If you're in Winter Spring, try to pick Mountain Silver Sage and Ice Caps. They sell for great, especially the Ice Caps, because mana potions are expensive and they will go higher in price. If you have mining, start picking Rich Thorium Veins, and if you have neither, if you don't have mining, you can do another thing which is called camping one spot. Now, camping one spot gives you about a 10% chance per hour to pick a Black Lotus. Like I said, we have 10 spawn points on the map, and if you go, let's say for example, to Silitus, and you go to the Twilight camps, there are 2 Twilight camps that have a Lotus spawn point, and also the Elementals to the north have a spawn point. If you always keep track herbs active and you're killing the mobs to make money, there's a 10% chance every hour that the Lotus will spawn there. It's the same for every area. For Winter Spring could be the Furbog camp, there are 2 of them that have, or if you're farming the Panthers up there, the Frostsabers for Winter Spring reputation, or if you're farming the Eye of Shadows south, there's always one spot where you can grind decent money and also have a spawn pot, a Lotus spawn point. Same for EPL in the Fungal Vale and the Noxious Glade, maybe even Northdale. That's one way of doing it, and the chances are 10% about every hour to pick, because the Lotus can spawn in every point. Now, I have seen the Lotus spawning even 3 times in the same spot. Once I was grinding in Burning Steps, the Lotus spawned 3 times, 3 hours in a row, 3 times in a row, to the same front cave. And it was mind-boggling, but that's not a rule, that's very rare, and it's not gonna happen a lot of times. But that's another way to grind it if you have a lot of competition. Another thing to know is never trust Lotus farmers. They will try to give you wrong timers, they will try to whisper you that they picked it, they will try to do everything to make you not pick the Lotus. So always keep focused on what you're looking for, and eventually you'll find them. Now, what do you do with the Lotus when you pick it? Now, it's obvious that when you pick a Lotus, I think I picked so far about 200 Lotuses since Classic WoW started, and I've sold most of them, and I made mistake in the beginning. I made mistakes in the beginning of the game. I sold them for like 50 to 60 gold because I needed the gold. I didn't have that much, and I was on a goal to get 10,000 gold and so on. Now I managed to get 42,000 gold cash. Then I managed to save another like 80 Lotuses, but I sold them for about 130 to 160 gold during the course of 1 week or so. And in the last week I picked like 15 to 20 Lotuses, or maybe the last 2 weeks, 15 to 20 Lotuses that I sold for about 180 to 200 gold each. Today, as we speak, the price of Lotus on Farlina is 200 gold, and I have a feeling that it might go even higher. So what you can do with them, you can save them, of course. And on some servers, you can turn them into flasks. Now, you might not have alchemy, but someone in your guild might have alchemy. And whenever you do Blackwing Lair, you can get the materials for crafting, let's say, for example, 10 flasks of Supreme Power with you, or whatever flask you think. Most of them sell. Distilled Wisdom, Titans, and Supreme Power. Let's give the example with 10 of Supreme Power. You get 10 Lotus with you, and you get the rest of the mats for the flask. First of all, check the price of the flask on the auction house. For example, if on Farlina the Lotus was 175 gold, like right after layering was introduced, 175 gold for the Lotus, a stack of Dreamfoil was 10G, and a stack of Mountain Silver Sage was 20G. So 175 gold with 30 Dreamfoils, which are 15 gold, would have been 190 gold, plus 10 Mountain Silver Sages, which were another 10 gold. That made it 200 gold. However, the flask was selling on the auction house for 260 gold. Even I purchased like 3 or 4 of them because I didn't have for raids, and I usually use flasks for raids. So that was making people about the 50 gold profit. Now, if you're asking a guild member to do them for you in Blackwing Lair, I would assume that you're going to drop a tip. So if he's crafting for you, let's say like 10 flasks, you can drop a 50 to 100 gold tip. It's a guild member, so you don't want to pay him too much, but you don't want him to charge you too much as well. You can come to an agreement. Maybe he does them for free to you, but I would recommend paying something to the alchemist, because he's sacrificing a profession like alchemy, and he's investing money into it, and he needs to make gold too. Although I wouldn't cry too much about alchemists, because they're making a lot of gold if they know what they're doing. I think that's about it. So let's recap. Gather mate Addon really great. And if you're having both herbalism and mining, by using Gathermate and a macro, which you can swap between track herbs and track minerals, the macro goes something like /cast sequence, find herbs, comma, find minerals. And I bound that to my mouse button, and I can swap between track herbs and track minerals whenever I'm running over either a rich thorium vein, either Black Lotus spawn, or Plague Blooms, or Dreamfalls, or whatever. The add-on, the spawn points, how to get the timer, a couple of tricks with, of course, magic dust, Pickle of the Flaming Fire, engineering gadgets, and so on. And now, having the right class for the Lotus, of course, some classes have different advantages to others, such as the Hunter with the Eagle Eye, and with having the pet. For example, in Tyr's Hand, there are 2 elites guarding a Lotus spawn point, and by playing, for example, a Rogue, you're able to sap one, blind one, and try to pick it if you're lucky. With a Hunter, you can send your pet, feign that, pick it, feign that, and it's really easy. Shaman, especially if you're playing a Tauren, you not only have always the 100% chance to pick the Black Lotus because it comes yellow, but you also have something called Farsight, which you can use it to scout the spawn points. Other than that, I think this is pretty much it. Whenever you're looking for it, don't get discouraged. Even if you don't get one in 3 hours, even if you have days when you don't get it, eventually you'll get one, then you'll get two, then you'll get three, and then you'll learn more about it. You'll learn how to look for it. For example, whenever you go for the Lotus, most people check all the spawn points. You don't have to check always all the spawn points, especially if you know that your competition is on the other side. You can turn around 180 degrees and go back to your previous spots. You can only cover half of the map, and so on. So the more you pick them, the more you'll get used to it. I got to a point where I can say with confidence that I can pick Black Lotus on every server, on every map, at least 1 to 3 per day. And I'm doing this live on stream. For the past week, I picked 2 to 3 per day every day by just playing the game and not even focusing 100% looking for the Lotus. I was playing with my mage, grinding either Mara, Princess Runs for the dagger, either for ZG. So I wish you the best in picking Black Lotus, and I would probably recommend to save a couple of them, at least one stack of 20 for the upcoming content such as AK-40 and Extramas. This is everything for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay frosty.